Today's lecture is about customer acquisition, or let's actually more accurately say user acquisition. This is the second most difficult task in the life of a software company and a startup, and whether you have a web application or a mobile application. And what's actually comical is when people are considering creating an app or a website, their first assumption is that they're going to create a great product and the users are going to come because the product is great, which is certainly not the case. Generally speaking, what you want to be aware of is that the most difficult aspect of creating a mobile app business or a web application or an online, you know, software as a service product is that one, you're usually not going to have a good business model. So that's one reason I have the course. So you can figure out how to create a good revenue model so you know how to actually bring in money. And to bring in money, you have to have users on your technology. I've designed it such that you only need a few users to start drawing in money. But the assumption among most who would go into this industry is that they're going to have a bunch of users on their technology. I want to emphasize that the very hardest thing to do is to identify a good business model. And then also, secondly, to get users on. And what I'm going to take you through right now is a lesson in user acquisition. I wanted to obviously create my slides for my practicum course. And as I'm doing that, you get to be here. You can share your comments, questions as I go along, and also get a sense of what the practicum is like in terms of some of the information. But what you should know is with regards to the practicum, it really is like a business meeting every single time, wherein it's one part education and it's another part practice. You're actually getting to take action. So generally, when we have the practicum, we'll have all of the students will be on a Google Hangout with myself. We'll be doing screen shares. People will be doing different tasks. We'll be asking questions. I'll be driving their thinking. We'll be looking at examples of what to do. We'll be looking at counter examples of what not to do. It's a great process. We've already probably had about 13 of these live sessions. We have at least 20 more to go. And you're going through the process of actually building a real tech product, a real software business, a real mobile application. So it's really neat. And it's the greatest value that you would ever get and the greatest practical experience.
And if you join now, you have access to all the past 13 sessions.
That's right. If you join, you will have access to every previous session. I'm going to bring up my slides. As I said, I'm using this time to create my slides for my practicum course so that they have well ordered slides, but I'm going to talk you through and provide you all with the knowledge as we go through. Of course, obviously, this is just one part of the user acquisition piece. We're going to do this again, of course, private for the folks who have purchased the practicum course. But for those who have never done any software development, they maybe have an app idea, never tried it. This is just a little taste of kind of the education and the practical experience that we're going to give you guys. So this is my gift to you all who maybe haven't invested in yourself, but I certainly encourage you to do so. In my experience as a teacher in Baltimore, I learned that sometimes people don't pursue certain rewards because they never experienced the reward. They don't know what it's about. So I want to share this with you all. Number one, when you're looking at user acquisition, I want to emphasize this is the most difficult thing. And understand when you're creating a mobile technology or really any technology, it involves quite a bit of work. And so when you finally get to the point where your product is ready to go and ready to be in the hands of users, it's an exciting moment. And you've invested a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of emotions. You've endured through your own doubt. You've endured through the doubt of other people. And now here you are with this product and you're struggling to get people to use it. And you're a bit perplexed as to why. This is a great app. Why don't people want to download my app? Why don't they want to visit my website? And you're shocked. Well, it turns out that it's not easy. So first, before I get into this, I just want to review so you all know what we've already covered up to this point in like the mini sessions that we've done in this practicum. We've covered number one, how to identify a problem that you can solve with a mobile application or you can solve with a web application or technology. The second one is we went through the revenue model, specifically what we call Marquette's Law of Two, like how do you define a revenue model, which is to say, how does your mobile app make money? The third lesson that we went through was how to create a minimal viable product with $0. That's right, folks, $0, not spending any money. The fourth lesson was choosing a product name and setting up payment processing. By payment processing, we're saying every time someone goes to your website or they use your mobile application and they pay you money, how do you get the money? How do you accept their credit card payment? What are the implications of that? The credit card processor is going to take 1.5% plus 25 cents for every transaction. You need to know if you're actually going to be making money as you go through that process. And I just want you guys to know what we've already learned in the course so you don't feel like we're just coming out of the blue. Once you figure out what the minimum viable product is, which is to say the most feature bare version of that product, how do you explain what the developer needs to do? That is to say, what your technical person needs to do to create this product for you. Then we went through how to engage a web developer and get and define your investment strategy. So sometimes you're going to need money to get your product over the finish line or to scale it up to millions of users. And so, how do you go about that? So, we went through all those practical steps which are necessary in creating a real mobile application or web application business. Then we discussed on a separate lesson never having a single point of failure in a system, which is to say that you always want to have safety precautions, whether it's like in terms of stabilizing your technology or in terms of your business processes. We talked about EQ for business, which is to say emotional intelligence for actually succeeding in business. And we talked about pivoting your minimum viable product, which is to say, how do you use $0 and keep on iterating on your minimum viable product to figure out what's most appealing to the end user. Then we went through reviewing a tech sprint, which is to say, once your developer has completed a portion of your mobile app or your web application, how do you go through the review process to make sure that they did it correctly? How do you go back and forth to make them do fixes? How do you structure a contract? How do you pay it out? These kinds of things. And then we went through, in our most recent lesson, we went through quality assurance, which is to say, once a full product is delivered to you, of course, the developer, their team should have a QA person that checks for bugs. But at the end of the day, you are the leader. You are the person who defined the requirements, the technical requirements. So you have to QA your own product. So how do you go through that process to make sure that it's actually good enough to put in front of a consumer? And then what is good enough to put in front of a consumer in terms of a minimum viable product? So we've done all of those things. And now here we are with a minimum viable product, which is to say, a raggedy version of what we ultimately want to create. And we are now ready to put users on it. We need to get people using this thing to figure out if it's really going to make us some money. I acknowledge Mr. Chapman. He writes, "This is not my niche, but I cannot turn down the opportunity to learn something new. Thank you, Quet. Peace of the Saints." Peace of the Saints indeed. And I think we will find that technology must be all of our niche. I know the gentleman is in the car business, and car technology is becoming extraordinary. From my mobile phone, I can start my car, I can roll up the windows, roll down the windows, I can make my car park itself, and do all kinds of things. And this is all software. And fundamentally, cars haven't changed much except for the software, right? Cars still drive from point A to point B, but it's the software that allows them to drive themselves. It's the software that allows me to turn on the air conditioning in my car before I even get out there. So let's go ahead and get into it. User acquisition, the second most difficult thing in creating a successful app business. Now, the first thing you want to understand with regards to user acquisition is firstly, who is your ideal user slash customer, right? And so we're thinking about users, not even people who are going to pay you, right? Because we first just got to see if we can get people on the technology to see if they find it to be of value. And so the first thing you're going to consider is who's the ideal customer to you, which is to say to your business. Who is the best person for it? I'm not going to go into the specifics about the two technologies that we're working on within the practicum course, but I'm just going to very quickly for you define some of the things that you need to be clear on, which is number one, what is the gender of this user? So one of the technologies we're considering, the gender of the user we're recruiting right now, this particular user, the gender is female. The age, and I'm just going to put a specific number, the age of this female is 18 years old. The income level is they're not well off, meaning like they're not wealthy. Now, generally, you don't want to define something so broadly, but when you're looking at someone who's 18 years old, generally they're not well off. The only 18-year-old that's not going to be an ideal target for what we're trying to do is one that's like a millionaire and just doesn't need any money. Then when we look at locations, the location is not critical for the kind of technology we're creating. And so the location can actually be anywhere in the world that speaks English and uses American payment remitting technologies. So English speaking countries that use PayPal or Visa. So that's the location piece. And then there's one further thing you want to think about when you're defining who this ideal user is. And the last thing is kind of like, what else do they do? What major hobby might they engage in? What other major product line are they curious about, or do they utilize that is related to your product? So I'll give you an example. Say, for example, if you're selling jelly, right? You're selling jelly, the jelly that you would eat. Well, the best buyer or customer for you would be someone who likes to buy peanut butter. If you know these users buy peanut butter, then they'll probably also buy jelly. And so that's one thing we're asking ourselves right now, which is what is another thing they do or another product they consume? And so we'll put, how about this, income source? So we'll just put income source. And really, this is income source slash hobby slash what have you. I think you get the sense. So we need 18-year-old females who also are low income OnlyFans girls, meaning they're on OnlyFans, but they're not very successful on OnlyFans. So low income OF, I'll just type it out. And if you know what product we're doing, you'll understand why. But this is another demographic marker that identifies our target person. I wish I wouldn't have said OF. That might actually get this stream flagged. But all the same, these are the things that mark this person. So now we have a sense of who we need to acquire as a user. We know that they are female, 18 years old, not wealthy. They speak English. Excuse me, they're in an English speaking country that uses PayPal or Visa, which is, say, credit card processing. And they are a low income OnlyFans girl, or they're willing to do OF. That's who we're looking for. That's our ideal. Now, the first thing, it says priority of acquisition targets, which is when you're in entrepreneurship, you're always operating as though you have no money. You might be a millionaire, a billionaire, but you still want to operate as though you have $0. That being and there are many reasons for that. I explain this in the course. But that being the case, you first want to deal with low hanging fruit, which is to say, who can I acquire as a user for $0? This is an activity categorized as not scalable, which is to say that the first time you go through your contact list and you text everyone, hey, I got this app, try it out. And then in the second app, hey, I got this app. If it doesn't relate to you, do you know anyone else who might be interested, or do you know anyone else that this would make sense for? So text all of your people your templated text message, and I'll go through a proper template soon. So the first thing you want to do is go through your contact list, text everyone, not call them. You want to text them because you can cut and paste. It doesn't require a lot of your time. And the second thing you want to do is go through all of your email contacts, send out an email blast to everyone. Hey, 2 requests below. Request number 1, if this is something you can use, try it out. Sign up at this website. If you can't use it, number 2, if you can't use it, can you forward this along to at least one person who can? Great. Then the third thing, same blast out to your Facebook friends. And the fourth thing, now this is the big one. This is strangers. Now, this is where you're actually about to start doing real work. This is something that is going to require significant thinking effort and data. You're going to have to figure out a process that is scalable. So understand that there's the scalable and there's the non-scalable. The approach we're going to take to strangers is scalable because there's an infinite number of strangers. The people in your personal contact list are limited. And as the operative within your corporation or your startup, you're going to go through your email list, your contact list, and all these things. You also want to have all of your employees do the same thing, your co-founder do the same thing, your independent contractors do the same thing. This is low-hanging fruit. These are the gimmies, these are the easy ones, and you might strike gold. But what you want to do from a scalability standpoint when you're reaching out to strangers is now we're going through Instagram, email, WhatsApp, Facebook, text, voice, all of these things to access strangers. We're using these platforms to access strangers. And when you're going to access strangers, now you're getting into something in which you need a well defined scientific approach and you have to figure out what's going to be most effective. And so, firstly, when you're outreaching to strangers, the outreach has to come from a trusted source, right? So, are you a trusted source? For example, as a Black male, I'm quite confident that I am not a trusted source. And what I mean by that, there was just recently a study that came out, and it showed that if you have a white male who has a criminal record go out and apply for a job, and a black male with the same everything except he does not have a record, he goes and applies for the job, the white male is still more likely to be hired, which is to say that the American society would rather give a job to a white criminal than a black guy who is a law abiding citizen, even if they have the same consistent education and employment history. So I know that the world does not view me as a trusted source. And as much as that's the case, when we're sending our outreach to our ideal customer or our end user that we're seeking, we would ask ourselves the trusted source for this particular product, service, or what have you, what gender are they? Are they male or are they female? Well, for our product, I think it would come more so from a female. Women trust women, especially with the kind of product this is. And then the question is, well, what's the ideal race? And what's the ideal age? Well, in the case of the one of the businesses that we're utilizing in our case study for the practicum, it's not a case study, we're actually creating the business, is the ideal person would be a 25-year-old white woman. That is the ideal person from whom our target end user would like to receive outreach from. That's the person that they trust, that they're most likely to respond to. And then, in the absence of it being an individual, maybe it's a business, which is to say, maybe you're reaching out to them from a business email, not as an individual. You're reaching out from a business Facebook account or a business Instagram account. Then there's the aspect of templating. And by templating, meaning that you need to have a number of pre written, well crafted, very pithy outreach messages that you're going to send. And we'll go through one right now. Shout out to Jimmy, who just joined as a member at assassin.com. We welcome you warmly within this thing of ours. So, templating. Here's an example of a template that we put together for this particular business. Monetize your inbox. IKnowHim.com fans pay $4 for guaranteed DM responses. Simply create an account and share your link with your fans. So we told them the what? IKnowHim.com. The why? Monetize your inbox, make some money. The who? Yes, it's you and your fans. That's it. And then we told them what to do: create an account, share your link. That's it. And it's very simple. It's basically two sentences essentially. And that's the templated message. Now, here's when you get to the science of it, right? You want to not make any assumptions in business. You always want to go the scientific and experimental route, which is to say, you actually have to test these things out. So here we go. This is this is exactly how you're going to test this out using each platform. So this is a business Instagram. This is an Instagram from a white male. This is Instagram from a white female. And this is an Instagram account from an influencer. So what this means is this person has significant existing following. Maybe they have a blue check. This is a white female, age 25. This is a white male, age 25. And this is the business. So this is iknowhim.com's IG. We're going to send out the same templated message, basically cut and paste into a DM. And then we're going to see what the data yields. And we're just going to use the 10 outbound messages and see how it's adding up, which is to say, how many of those messages were ignored from the business IG, how many were ignored from the white male IG, how many were ignored from the white female and from the influencer. Then we're going to check how many were replied to, and then how many actually converted. And by convert, we're trying to get influencers to sign up. That's the first wave. So once you get all of that data and you record it here, then you might find, oh, wow, well, the business IG and the white female IG both performed at the same level. So now we know from whom our target consumer wants to hear. And now we can take this data and we can apply this to all of the platforms. When we reach out on Instagram, email, WhatsApp, Facebook, text, or voice, we're going to make sure that it's the specific kind of person. Either it's that white girl or it's someone who says, hi, I'm from iknowhim.com, calling to say blah, 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 because that's what's going to appeal to the consumer. With regards to user acquisition, you want to use this data-based approach to figure out which identities are most effective, but you also want to use the data-based approach when looking at each platform. So for example, if you were to send 10 Instagram messages, 10 emails, 10 WhatsApp messages, 10 Facebook DMs, 10 texts, and 10 voice calls, all to strangers, and you want to look at which platform is converting at the highest rates. And when you find the platform that is converting at the highest rate, that is the one that you want to utilize exclusively, meaning you're only going to focus on that one. You're going to double down. And that's because you have a limited amount of time, right? And you have a limited amount of resources. So you're going to double down on that particular platform that's giving you the best ROI. Shout out to Gensley came in supporting the work. Since in a baller alert, he writes, this is my niche and this is high level. Have to baller alert this. I appreciate this. And by the way, I did take a look on YouTube. I just typed in user acquisition and everything was garbage, primarily because it's from people who took a marketing degree and or people who have read some crappy book, but they don't have experience. They've not made a bunch of money. They've not made millions upon millions of dollars in this game. They don't know what they're talking about. So that's why I said, let me give this gift to the internet for free. And those who are actually serious, they want to really make money. I'm talking about millions of dollars. That's what the software business is about. In the description, you can join the practicum and you can actually go through the process of building a company. By the time this practicum is finished, there will be a real product out in the world that people will be using. So that is the beauty of this practicum. You'll get all of the lessons we've done previously that are recorded, and then you'll be a part of the live sessions moving forward. Carrying on, and thank you for the support. Thank you to those who actually support good information and a good effort. Carrying on. So with these unpaid methods, you're going to find which one is giving you the highest ROI. And you're going to focus exclusively on the unpaid methods, which is to say they're free, doesn't cost you any money. Later on, once we perfect, then we're going to use advertisements. And we're going to use specifically, probably more likely Instagram for this type of business. Facebook ads, I do not find convert very well. I think Facebook ads are garbage. Google ads are decent, but they tend to be a little bit more complex to run. And so I just, for that reason, usually your goal is to get good at your business, not good at running ads. You know, once you get really good at your business, if you get enough users, you can hire a specialist to do that. So in as much as that's the case, I wouldn't advise anyone to waste time with Google ads for your young startup. And I don't recommend Facebook ads because I've run tens of thousands of dollars on Facebook ads and they do not convert very well. Says that shirt is fire, by the way. I appreciate that. This is a custom you did. You're, let me see, bust that out for you. Ah, that's the MDB label. You feel me? Yeah, this is a custom. You can't find a crew neck dress shirt anywhere. These are the kind of things that guys who are coming on our men's trip will be able to get. There's 4 doubles left and there's 4 singles left for those who want to buy their ticket. And it's going to close September 5th. You cannot join the trip after that. So this is one of the things. So there you go. He writes, if one had felonies, could one still apply? I'm not sure what you're referring to. Apply for what exactly? If you're saying to join my course, yeah, you can join the course for felonies. And in fact, I'd recommend it because the more difficult your or the more infractions you have on your criminal record, the harder it is to get a job. You kind of are forced into entrepreneurship, frankly, if we're being realistic. Anyways, carrying on. Next piece. Now, what do you need your user to do? This is often a failing when people are trying to acquire users. Generally, when you're executing on an MVP does not have a wizard, which is kind of a term for a smooth process that walks you through the how-to of the technology. That's usually missing in the minimum viable product. So, in as much as that's the case, this is where you create a PDF, you create a narrated video, you create all sorts of different things. Someone put LinkedIn ads. Yeah, LinkedIn ads. It depends on I prefer LinkedIn ads if you're doing B2B, which I highly recommend against B2B, generally speaking, for the particular types of technologies that we're doing. LinkedIn won't help at all. In fact, it might hurt us. But yeah, you could use LinkedIn. That's an option. But generally speaking, LinkedIn is going to be much better when you're doing B2B deals, and or your target consumer is older, right? So that's when LinkedIn is going to be a better thing for you. But generally, I don't recommend it. And I don't recommend B2B businesses. I recommend B2C businesses, which is to say that you're selling to individual consumers, you're not selling to businesses. Thank you for that question. So, as I was saying, what do you need your user to do? In our case, when you look at our templated message that we're sending out to the users, it's specifically saying create an account, share the link with your fans. So, if you were to go to iknowhim.com, you sign up as an influencer, and once you sign up, it's going to provide you a link, iknowhim.com/Kanye West. And so what you would do as Kanye West, you take that link and you tweet it out, you put it on your Instagram profile. Hey, if you want me to respond to your DM, message me on iknowhim.com/Kanye West. And so once they do that, then that's when the transaction can occur. And that's essentially what you're trying to drive as a business person. Second piece is accelerating effective strategies. Well, you cannot accelerate the strategy unless you know what it is, and that's one of the critical jobs of the founder, one of the early persons in the when in the startup. So once you figured out, okay, our best platform is Instagram. The identity that our consumer wants to hear from is a 25-year-old white girl who has an OnlyFans account. So we're going to create an account, whether it's real or fake, and we're going to use this account to message other women who are age 18, are in an English speaking country, and are petty OnlyFans content creators, or they would be OnlyFans content creators, and we're just going to blast this out to them because we know that that is the right formula. And are we going to do this? No, because we have better things we can go on to because we've mastered this process. So now we're going to hand this process off to someone who is earning a lower rate wage or volunteering to accelerate it and do it a whole bunch of times. And we're doing that based on the data we've gathered. Then the next piece is a release event. So are you gonna have a release party or some specific date and time by which you want everyone signed up, or some date and time in which you're gonna do some like coming out event or like big deal, which is to put your technology, your website, your app in the forefront and do some marketing, that big push, so to speak. So that's another technique that you can use to acquire users. And it's very common as well. And the important thing also is the timing of the users, especially if there are different types of users in your technology. So, for example, some technologies, not ours, but some technologies require that the users be synchronous. And what I mean by that is like right now, we're synchronous, we're live, we're on the technology at the same time. It's a requirement, right? Some technologies are like that. Like, for example, Zoom, you can't use a Zoom video call unless both people are there at the same time. In as much as that's the case, when you have those kinds of technologies, having a release party is a great idea because it creates an event that can gather everyone at the same time such that your technology can do what is necessary to drive the transaction. Okay, and then the final stage is obviously after you've accelerated the process that you've perfected utilizing free or low cost labor, then what you want to start doing is leveraging technology to accelerate it, which are paid efforts through any of the advertising platforms listed here, minus Facebook, which I don't recommend. And you obviously want to only use paid means once you know that your process is correct, your platform is correct, the trusted source has been rightly identified. And if that's the case, you know every time your ad works, someone signs up, and then that sign up converts to a transaction, which means the business is receiving money, which is to say you're only paying for ads because you know the ad will convert into you receiving money. So you're going to maybe spend $100 on ads to make $130 in revenue. That's the only time you start paying. You will never start paying to acquire users unless the users you acquire pay you. That is the rule. Saints, I will now yield the floor to send in any comments, questions. Of course, if you've paid for the practicum, you can click the link uh, in the calendar invite or from the course website, and you can join on screen with your camera off or on. Doesn't matter to me. Ask your question, or you can ask your question right now. And also, of course, we're going to have yet another 20 or 20 plus practicum sessions, and we're going to execute on these things so you can see exactly how this stuff works. Because I'm not telling you things I don't know. I'm not telling you things I've never tried. I'm telling you things I know extremely well at an expert level that I've tried and converted much money doing. So we're going to do it. You're going to go through the process and see that it's real and that it works. And also you're going to experience that it takes time, and that, making millions of dollars is not something that happens overnight. It's not effortless. It takes effort, and it takes thinking and strategy. Well, great. I think that we're all caught up. You guys have received a free lesson in user acquisition, which is the most important thing with regards to creating a successful mobile application and technology. User acquisition, it's rarely taught about, and often you guys, you'll go and spend money with developers, and they'll build you this technology, and then no one ever uses it. It's like spending a bunch of money opening a nightclub, but no one ever shows up on a Friday, Saturday night. It's like the worst feeling in the world, right? Please know that most things don't happen for no reason, and user acquisition is something that you have to design. It will not happen naturally, so to speak. Anyways, carrying on. Not carrying on. We're done here. If you are a member, actually, if not, if you're a member, if you have the course, we will be resuming a new practicum session, live session very soon. I'll send it out in the same way as always. And of course, you'll always have access to the previous courses. Until next time, peace of the saints.